Hey there, guys. It's Mia here. I am so excited. I am so excited about this quick live today, and it's called The Slap. It's an unusual topic, but I did want to weigh in on just my opinion about what happened with the Will Smith smacking Chris Rock, and just my opinion. There are three things that I'm going to talk about, just literally from my heart, and maybe it'll contribute to a different kind of dialogue and conversation around it. And it covers marriage, the shine, and ego. I'm going to talk about marriage, the shine, and ego. I'm Mia Redrick, business and life consultant. And today I'm not actually going to talk anything about business, what I do, which is what I do most of the time when I'm here. But I just felt this on my heart, this message. And I hope that this perspective will just be another perspective to elevate, just how we look at things. My family, just kind of my husband and I, hey there, darling. My husband and I and my son, my oldest son, who's 23, have all been talking about this. I think everybody's talked about it. My daughter's called in also from college, and we've all just been talking about the slap. Okay. And obviously there are many different opinions of what's going on. And let me just give you some context. I've been married to my husband for 26 years, and Pat is my teddy bear. Okay. And he is a really great guy who is a fierce protector of his family. Yeah. And so I could relate to what Will was talking about. He's a fierce protector of his family, or wants to be. But my husband is not a fighter. Okay. And I don't think Will is either. So I wanted just to talk about it from this perspective of being married for 26 years to a teddy bear. And there are a couple of things that I want us all to think about, at least that I thought about. Before Will and Jada showed up front row at the Oscars, they probably knew that there was a high probability that they would be roasted, right? Because that's what happens when you sit on the front row at the Oscars. And they had already had a history of having been roasted before. Okay, does that make sense? And they weren't even there, right? So the reality is that Jada had already been roasted before, and she wasn't even invited to the Oscars when she was roasted. Okay, and Chris had a joke that referenced that. So they knew that if they were sitting front row at the Oscars, that there was a high probability that they would be roasted right there. Is that, would you guys agree with that? All right. So if I understood that in context, that there's probably a probability for me, I would begin wrapping my mind around what that could be. Like, you're not going to know what the joke is. That's the whole point. But you know that there's a high probability that's going to happen to you. All right. Now, the other thing I would be thinking as my husband's wife, okay, is this is your big moment. Okay. This is your moment. You are nominated for an Oscar, which is an incredible honor of distinction for being amazing. And what I would also be thinking is that this night is not my night. This night is about you, boo. Okay, like 100%. So I want you guys to hear my heart on this. I'm just speaking from a perspective of having been married pretty similar time to Will and Jada. We've been married for 26 years. And just thinking about this in context, I was like, man, if Will were my husband of 26 years, 24, 25 years, they've been married, something like that, then I would be thinking that the probability of someone saying something twisted to us is high because we're sitting on the front row at the Oscars. And also, given the fact that Chris Rock has already said something and I wasn't there about me before previous Oscars, then I would know it's high probability for that. So I would begin to brace myself for that. The second thing I would be thinking of is, this is my man's big night. Okay. Like, this is your big night. Okay. So whatever I need to do, no matter what happens, it is never going to be about me tonight. It is 100% going to be about you, because marriage comes with that. Sometimes we have to cover our partners that way. All right. And then my husband and I now were banter about this. I said to him, he said, yeah, what would you have done if I had gotten up? I said, well, first of all, I likely would have told you, what are you doing? Sit down. Like, we're not doing this. This is not what we're doing tonight. Because when you've been married that long, or even a short time, You can cover your partner. Sometimes, people lose their cool, right? Like in a moment, and they're not thinking as clearly as they need to, or they make a moment about you that shouldn't be about you. But, when we have partners who we care deeply for and it is their moment, we cover them. And you cover them by, you grab his hand or you say, babe, sit down. Like, what are you doing? We're not doing that, right? Like, oh, no, 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 no. And the thing that really came to mind to me was that didn't happen. Okay. And even when Will came back and had a seat, and he was yelling, there was not like, oh, no, 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 babe. Like, what are you doing? I would have said, Pat, what are you doing? All right. So that was my perspective around that in terms of, in marriage, I'm going to cover you, babe, and I'm never going to make your moment about me. And I honestly would have been thinking like, there is a likelihood that we're going to get joked on, and that whatever I need to do to not, get in the way of your moment, I am not getting in the way of that moment. Just like actors and actresses know, like, if someone's interviewing the star, right? Even though they're both stars, but they're interviewing the person that's being honored, they kind of step to the side, right? So that it's your moment. I would have done exactly that in that moment. And I think it was an option that was on the table for your partner, right? Relationally, to cover your partner and not make them have to hold a place for you when really you are holding a place for their giganticness, because that's what that night was all about. And that's my opinion. And not everybody's going to agree with it, but that's how I see that. And then even if there was a reaction that was less than appropriate and Pat got up and he was going to storm off or whatever, I would have been like, what are you doing? Sit down. Like, what? No, we don't do that. Have a seat. Because he would have been doing it for me. You know what I mean? And I would have been like, I don't require that, babe. You don't have to prove your love to me. You don't have to walk into the lion's den and ruin everything that's big for you tonight. This is your time to shine. Number two is the shine. Okay. And so one of the things, hey, Kimberly, I'm so glad you're here. And one of the things that I realized is that when you are a giant, and let's be clear that Will Smith is a giant in every way. All right. So here's a guy that's been able to not only have a lasting career in music and in doing television shows that have been syndicated and done exceptionally well, Grammy Award winning artist. He's just won his first Oscar. He's a $20+ million guy for each of his films or more. Blockbuster star. He shines. And when you shine, okay, that you got to understand a couple of things about shining is that a lot of times people who shine, they operate with what I call, it appears, ease and grace, right? Like Will just came out with a book. I think it was last year. His new book just came out, became a New York Times bestseller, right? Everything the guy touches turns to gold. And sometimes when you are a person that shines, the things you touch works. And there's an ease and grace around what you do. There are a couple of things that happen. You get, number one, you get people who love you, right? And that's the reason why you create amazing success, is because you are talented and you're skilled, and there are people that love your work, and you create an impact, right, with your work. And he does that. And I think we all would say that. We all know, Will Smith in some context of our life, whether it's a movie or whether it's a song or both, or whether it's his television programming, he's great. He shines. But also just like you get people who love what you do, you also develop people who are haters of you, okay? And that those are the people who are looking for the cracks in your glass. You know what I mean? So you're this $1 million guy, you create an amazing success. Everything that you do looks like it comes easily and effortless to you. And it does, because you're operating your gifts with authenticity. However, it doesn't mean that behind the scenes, you're not doing the work. And he appears to me to be a guy that really is exceptionally disciplined in many of the roles and things he's done over the years. And the reason that he shines isn't because he woke up like this. It's because he wakes up to do things. Because he wakes up and does things that other people aren't willing to do. And that's, have, like, all the greats. Like if you listen to, Kobe Bryant's work habit or Michael Jordan's work ethic, the reality is, or The Rock's work ethic. I mean, they do things. People who shine do things that people who don't shine as brightly don't do. But you do develop, there are people who will, they hate you, right? Because they ain't you, okay? And they want to find those cracks in your glass. And, one of the things my mom told me over the years is, and I coach a lot of women who are exceptionally talented, brilliant, and amazing. And so my mom told me it's not what they call you, but it's what you answer to. And what I've learned over the years is that you can only answer to something, and I'll explain this, if you believe it inside of you, right? So ultimately, all the work that we do, from anything that anybody says about us or does to us, you only respond to it based on your inner work. All right. So what I think happened, right, in terms of that breakdown, when I looked at the speech and all of those things, is I don't even know if it was just cracks in the character. I think that sometimes, imagine the cycles of being great, right? The vulnerability it takes to be great. Everything that you do, people have an opinion about. This is great. This is not great. And you've got a lot of people judging a lot of things. And I think in terms of the work, it comes with the business. But also last year, a lot of their personal life, I think it was last year or a year and a half ago, a lot of their personal life also came forward. And about their marriage. All right. So there's the guy, his work, and then there's, his marriage. And I actually think that, the vulnerability of that, it was really difficult. Like, as a wife, being married to my husband for 26 years, would I ever want to publicly talk about our intimate life, our sex life, in the ways that that they talked about so openly around the red table? I don't think so. I don't know that it would have felt appropriate for me. I'm just talking about myself to talk about whether or not my husband's had an ability to fulfill me or not was enough or not. I don't know that. I think that for me, it would be a no, that would be public conversation. Okay. You know what I mean? So, and I think that, that hurts. That's like big hurt, right? Like that's like big hurt from someone that you love. Now, let's be clear that when we are talking about, when we're talked about by people who don't love us, don't care for us, don't protect us, you know what I mean? That hurts. People who hate you, right? Because they ain't you. But it's different than when you have someone that you break bread with every day, that you share your bed with, right? In the most deepest and intimate matters, put your business out there in that way. I think that's really a difficult and very vulnerable place to be. I think that for many men, it would have impacted their esteem and their manhood. And to me, when I think about the shine, I think that he's a guy that wins, and he's been shining professionally over and over again. And then you had, over the last year and a half, some opportunities where we all learned things about their marriage or their intimacy or him in that way that didn't shine as much, right? And that showed cracks in their, I think it was just really painful. Like, I just think that would be really painful to hear publicly and have to navigate in any kind of interview. So I think you have to understand, when you are a person that's amazing and great at what you do, that there are going to be people who will affirm you and love you. And there are going to be people who, the moment that they hear anything that is less than perfect, and all of us are imperfect, are going to like go for that crack in the glass. And I think you also have to understand, when you are amazing at what you do, particularly when money is involved, is that money is involved. Okay. Like, you got this guy who is the go-to guy, right? And everything he does wins, and it's very, very profitable. So you have a lot of people who will covet that, who really would benefit from trying to tell a story about him that would be less than favorable, because they likely want to line up and and make room for themselves. And that's like real. And I think that for Will, the most important thing is doing that inner work, so that it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. And that's all based on your inner work, right? And my mom taught me that years ago. Like, if somebody told me, like, Mia, you have big ears, right? It's like, I have actually really small ears with no lobes, So if you say I have big ears, and I'm like, I have big ears, it's because I haven't done that work to really know who I am. And the moment that I start listening to what people say I am, and that voice is higher than my own, then I got cracks in my own glass, right? My own inner work, right? And it's time for me to go to work. And I think when you're shining like that, people are going to, people are going to try to crack your glass. Like they're gonna try to crack your glass because of who you are, what your light is, the fact that you do things with ease and with grace. They don't realize how hard that you've worked over the years. And I felt like as a giant, right? And Will is a giant in every way, and I'll talk about Chris in a minute. Why would I ever give my platform to an ant? I am not ever going to do that. I'm going to tell you, like, why would I do that? And I think Will forgot that in that moment. Like, there are moments when you're dealing with someone. Okay, in this case, he's dealing with a comedian who's saying something that's low vibration, that is toxic, right? But why would you put him on your level? He's not on your level if what he's saying isn't, what I mean, giant. And I'm never gonna give a tiny person my stage ever. I understand ants. I understand how they operate. You know what I mean? I understand that they're just chipping away and watching away, right? Looking for cracks in who you are, and they just don't deserve. I'll just let them be. You know what I mean? Just let them be, and know that you're not equivalent. And I really felt like Will walking on that stage was like him giving an ant, right, ant-like behavior, his platform as a giant, and it reduced him in tremendous ways. And I'd never do that. So that's the other thing. And the last thing is ego. Your ego, we know, is not your friend. Okay, your ego is not your friend. And so what happened was the anger that Chris felt, the emotion that not Chris felt, that Will felt, the reaction that he made, the walking on the stage, was all because of ego. And the problem with ego, when your ego leads, it's like then you don't get to lead with what's most powerful, which is strategy. Will had a lot of really great opportunities had he not gone up there to right that wrong. I mean, he could have done a whole lot, really. Like he could have gone on that stage. He could have walked up there and said, I just want to say that I think my wife looks beautiful tonight, right, with her bald head, and and how she's transitioned, how brave she is for coming out and dealing with alopecia. And I don't know that you knew that tonight, Chris, but your joke was insensitive. He could have taken the mic, and you know what I mean? He could have taken control of that situation. The reason he couldn't was because his ego was not his friend. He decided that he would respond in anger, he would respond in violence, and ultimately he allowed the ant to control, you know what I mean, his moment. And so he became an ant also. And I think that, hey there, Lynn, I think that that's something that's really important to understand, is that your ego is not your friend when you're responding to whatever it is. And a lot of times we'll do it because of the pressure. So, because I think it goes back to him and that pressure of how maybe he felt emasculated over the last year and a half about many things that were talked about in his personal life. And so he was trying to show everybody he was this tough guy. And I also believe that because it wasn't well played is because it wasn't his nature. So he's not a guy that we know to be violent or to be rude or ignorant in any way like that. And when he did what he did, it didn't come across well because it wasn't his nature, right? Like it just didn't fit. And it's the reason why we all are talking about it. And thank God for forgiveness, right? Thank God for a track record. But I think that we all can learn some things. For those of you who are in relationships or who have partners, that we can cover our partners, you know what I mean? And I would have just said, babe, this is your night. This is not about me. I would have not been rolling my eyes. And I would have probably thought that being on the front row, there's a high probability that we're going to get talked about tonight. So whatever I need to do to eat, swallow, you know what I mean? I'm going to do it. And I would have dealt with Chris on the back end. I think we have to assume some things about a comedian sometimes, like he didn't have all the facts. I don't think he would have talked about a medical condition if he knew that she had a medical condition. And I think sometimes if we become more comfortable with who we are, sometimes not that what he did was right, that you could have dealt with it in a different way on the back end. Chris would have apologized, made a big donation to, the Alopecia Foundation or something like that. And it could have been a really powerful moment for every single person. So, those are my opinions, right? That's yeah, it was on the back end, right? Like on the back end, I think, what do you guys think? So what I talked about, Lynn, I don't know if you heard the whole thing, was first of all, covering in the marriage, right? Like if it's Pat's big moment, Pat doesn't have to fight a battle on his big moment. Like it's your time to shine. I'm there for that. And that's it. That's the only thing that matters. That's what we came for. And I'm always going to focus on the mission. And these guys are professional actors and actresses. So they absolutely understand, you know what I mean, how to perform, right? And then two, the shine is that you have to also understand that with great success comes many things. You're going to have people who love you because of the impact that you create. And you're going to have haters. You're going to have people who are jealous of you. You're going to have people who want to copy you, who want to duplicate you, who want to attack you, who want to find cracks in your glass because they're not you. And you can read their press clippings if you choose to, but I will tell you that you're not going that way. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks of you, okay, who's not in a position to support you and elevate you. And, it's just flat true. And so many people spend a lot of their time really internalizing what people think of them, what they say about them, what they do to them, as if someone else has greater power over you than what God has instilled within you. And it's just that's what happened. Like, and makes you lose your focus. And then ego takes over, right? And ego is the anger, ego is that emotion, ego is that volatility. And it makes you respond like an ant. And you become and have likeness, just like the person who was never qualified to discount you in any way, right? Yeah. Very good take on the scenario, because the reaction could have been strategized to impact, right? Like there was a great opportunity, I think about things that have happened to me over the years, and I have certainly have had opportunities to do exactly what Will does, but I would never give my platform to an ant, never. They just don't deserve it. And I'm not elevating people who don't see themselves in an elevated way, who don't communicate in an elevated way, who don't operate in an elevated way. Like, why would I do that? That's not what I'm doing. That's not how I spend my time when I get up in the morning. But in the same token, I'm also not going to fight a battle for Pat around his own insecurities. You know what I mean? And I think that that's really important in any relationship. Sometimes, people get in trouble because of that kind of thing, right? Like, and if Pat ever thought he had to fight a battle for me on his big night and he got up and he was out of play, I would have been like, sit down. They're like, what are you doing? Sit down. Like, what? We can't do this, because I'm going to cover you. Like, I'm not going to have anyone who I care about, like, have to prove their love in that way. He doesn't have to prove his love in that way. He loves me, right? You know what I mean? So it's really important, Lois, right? You've given a very balanced perspective. I think it's important. I've heard a lot of comments about, about Will and what he could have done. And I was thinking, man, like this guy's been married as long as I've been married. And I really just felt like, how would I have reacted? Like, nobody knows, right? But and Pat and I talked about it, and I was like, I would have been like, I would have probably grabbed his hand and been like, sit down. You know what I mean? No, not now. Now it's not a good time. Or even when he came back to his seat and he was cursing like that, I would have just been like, babe, no. Like we don't do this. Like we're not doing this. Because it's your moment to shine. And we're not going to be an ant. We can control who we are, what we do, who we serve. We never allow people who aren't qualified to qualify us. And that is something that is a quote that anybody could take to the bank. Never allow a person who's not qualified to qualify you. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what happens, right? Like sometimes when, like in Will's case, he has so much to lose. And he's a bigger star than Chris. I mean, Chris is a great comedian, right? But he's not Will, all right? And Chris would even understand that. And the truth of the matter is, Chris is talking about Will. Okay. Will is Chris's material because he's a giant. And when you are a giant, sometimes you become the material for ants. You understand? It comes with the territory. And you have to decide how you're going to respond from a place of fear, from a place of power. And, I've just decided for myself and for my family that we know who we are and it doesn't come from the outside in, right? You never allow a person who's not qualified to qualify you. Like literally, imagine me, if you understand, like in this case, Will, Chris was talking about Will, right? And speaking of his family in a negative way. And so imagine that he can't qualify me. You know what I'm saying? Or imagine it like somebody copying me talking about me. Or like it's like you can't even create your own damn stuff. Like how are you going to talk about me? Like I can't even imagine. You're not even qualified. You're not even in the same class, right? You're not even the same mental, like mental game. Like your skills, your ability. You're not me. And you got to understand that about yourself. And the moment that you don't recognize that in your shine, not from an ego perspective, but you got to really know what you bring. And because the people who are joking you, right? The people who are copying you, the people who are trying to harm you, cracks in the glass, they know what you're amazing at. That's the thing. I'm just being honest about that. They know what you're amazing at. And you got to understand that even more than them. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So, please. So, I hope that helps. I hope that helps somebody. That was my commentary. And it's a different perspective. I think there could be tons of healing. There will be from this. These are two great performers, and I think this is an opportunity for Will and Jada to keep what's private private. Like I just don't think your sexual life belongs in like on a table. Like why would I talk about the man I'm with that I sleep with for slept with for 26 years? Like me being satisfied or not? That's just not. No, that's like why that's not called being involved. That is called like not keeping anything private. That's called like there's no sacred space. Don't talk to me about that being some level of evolution, right? Like I'm so evolved I can talk about my sexual life. No, no, no. Like this is a person I have an intimate, sacred relationship with. And what makes it sacred is the fact that not all things are for public consumption. And that's how I see it. Being married for 26 years, there is no way I would do that. And if Pat did that, I would sock him, right? Like I'd sock him, like I'd clock him, right? Like literally, right? And then he probably clocked me because that's just not acceptable. And I don't think we've talked about that. I think it's really, really important. They said, oh my goodness, right? Look at the judge hearings for the days of Ann Swings. Oh my goodness. And that is a great, when you look at Judge Kantanji and what was going on with that whole thing. And that's a whole different topic, but it's so true. Like I looked at that and I thought this is a woman who has checked every single box, even more than all the justices combined. Okay. Like every box. I saw there was a checklist of all the things that they look for, in terms of like your education, in terms of being a public defender, working in, a private law firm, all the things. And she's done all of these things, right? She's exceptional. But I think that's one of the things you have to understand when you're exceptional, that there are going to be people who covet you. There are going to be people who are jealous. There are going to be people who recognize your haters are your lovers. Like your haters are your biggest admirers. If you could just understand what is it that they're hating about you and really understand like your brilliance, the fact that you are fabulous, the fact that you are blessed, that things come to you and look like this with ease and grace, the fact that you actually do the work, the fact that you have character, the fact that you have discipline, the fact that you have self-respect, the fact that you trust yourself, the fact that you love yourself. I mean, all of these things come into factor when you are showing up in tremendous ways like she did, like a giant, or for any of you guys. It is because of the work that you have done. And the people who covet what you do, who duplicate what you do, they are not you. There's like, let's be clear. All right. And so anything that they say, anything that they do, you got to understand that they're only doing it because they, at the end of the day, they are studying you. They want to be you. I can tell you, when I wake up each and every day, I have my little note cards, you know what I mean? Like, this is what I'm going to talk about today. You know, it's hardly anything on here, and I don't need to read my purpose, because I was born for it. I was created for it. It's my divine giftedness. And I understand if somebody wants to take their time and they want to transcribe what I do and they want to reread it and they want to redo it, I get it. Like, I get it. I feel sorry for you. I got compassion for you. But that is not my journey. It's not my walk. When I wake up each and every day, my job is to serve the people I'm meant to serve, what God has given me, the gifts I have, to bestow those. Ketanji's job is to serve the world, right? To serve this country as a Supreme Court justice, which she will be confirmed. And that's her job, right? And like what these jokers are saying, they're a joke. They're not even qualified. You can't even hold a match to her. And the moment that she would internalize anything these little jokers say, it would be a disservice to who she is and her purpose and her calling. It's the same with Will. Will's a giant in every way. And somehow his ego got in the way in that moment, and he allowed an ant-like thought, right, to guide him, right? And but he can change that. So I hope this helps. I love you guys. It's something that I think about all the time. Just, really, guys, protect the gifts, do the inner work. Make sure each and every day you take time to pray and to meditate, to be grateful for the giftedness. Never be confused around what makes you amazing, or be shy about it, right? Because it's a light that's inside of you, and there are people that are here right now that need you and your calling, right? And don't worry about all of that other stuff, the low vibration stuff, because it falls on the wayside. And one of the things I've learned is, how they say don't cast your pearls, right? Like among swine, pigs. And that's what Will did, right? So he took his pearls and he casted them that way. And he just, and that's not where they belong. That's not where your skills belong, right? So it's not where your talents belong, right? So, key is inner work. You got to do that work, and it makes all the difference. And it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. And it's really important. Your inner game is going to determine that. But I'm not waking up in the morning and running somebody else's race. That ain't happening. You know what I'm saying? Or I forgot, was it Ryan Locke, the Olympic swimmer, who, when he was swimming against Michael Phelps, right? You just saw him. He was like, he lost, right? Because he kept watching Michael Phelps, right? Like, think about that, right? Like, he didn't win because he wasn't focused on winning. He was focused on how fast was Michael going. And Michael was focused on the goal. All right, you get to choose. I love you. Have an amazing day. And thank you guys for joining me this afternoon. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.